Good morning. Good morning. Welcome everybody to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker Carl, and I'm here with my good friends Dan and Catherine. And today we are talking about the big book, The Soul of Money by Lynne Twist. And we're on chapter 11 called Creating a Legacy of Enough. But before we get started, I want to give my friends an opportunity to introduce themselves. And for those of you who are watching, if you want to give us a shout out down below the video here and just say, hey, I'm watching. Or if you're watching this as a recording, just let us know what you're thinking when we're going through this chapter. So, all right, guys, jump on out.
Good morning. This is Catherine in Boulder, Colorado.
Dan Sissick in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Alrighty. So if anybody's out there watching, you want to join us in this conversation, you can find us over in Facebook, mindsetmasterycollective.com. There'll be a link below this video where you can jump over there and add your thoughts and just chat with us and whatnot. So anyway, chapter 11, creating a legacy of enough. And at the beginning it says, the life you live is the legacy that you leave. And she started this chapter by talking about a time when her mom was dying. And she knew she was because she had cancer. And she said that she only had a few months to live. And so she was just kind of spending her time living in the moment, appreciating her family and her life and her garden and all of that kind of thing. And so Lynne went to stay some time with her there close to the end. And she went through, they both talked a lot about her life and some of the things that she was, appreciative of. And it was just really interesting because there she, at the end of her time, she spent all of this time writing out all of these thank you letters to all the people that she appreciated in her life. And I got to thinking about that. I'm like, who would I write letters to? And would I don't know. If I had the time, I would be like, what do I want to spend my last little bit of time doing? And I don't know if I would write letters because I'm not big on writing, but I think I would want to reach out to everybody and just tell you all how much I appreciate you. And but I thought it was just really interesting that process that she went through doing that. And I'm wondering what you guys think.
Just interesting how even people that most of us think are basically insignificant, or we'll put them as insignificant people, like the people we deal with at the grocery store, the people, places that you go regularly. Like I have a regular convenience store I go to every day. Know who I am, things like actions, and but yet how, because of that long acting with these people and dealing with them even on a level, how how impactful the interaction was, and what she said and left, and how she made them feel it, and that's why they showed up at her fears all the other times, even though like deal with at the convenience store, and show up at my funeral unless I were to actually reach out and something like that. So I think it's, we don't realize how much of an impact we really have on people's lives until we make ultimate, I think, appreciation, see that every day that really matter, that we think they are what matter.
You're still really choppy, Dan.
I thought it was very inspiring. A lot of time, I mean, you guys sort of know that I've been helping people die my whole life, and I help them through the death process, but I haven't really helped them through celebrating their life process, you know. And so that was very inspirational to me. I thought it was a great idea. Not everybody is going to want to do that, but for some people, you know, going back and reminiscing about their life, and even if they don't write all those letters or make all those calls to people or whatever, it just telling their story, you know, just sharing the good parts and the bad parts, and if there's regrets or no regrets or what they'd have done different. I think it's a great thing to do with somebody who's getting ready to transition. Um, this chapter actually helped me a lot because I have been in deep contemplation about what to do moving forward. Ubering is definitely not, I mean, it's good for now, but it's not like my lifelong plan. And I have been questioning my guides and stuff forever. You know, should I be working with people who are dying? And we have this huge baby boomer population, you know, that is going to be transitioning. And so there's more need for healthcare people in the future, and, you know, hospice people and things like that. And so I had been thinking, you know, should I return to school? Because I'd probably have to go back and redo my nursing school or whatever. And could I really handle, you know, I can't handle being on my feet for 12 hours. What am I going to do? And so I started doing some research around this, and I actually found out that there's a certificate. There are certificate programs for what I've been doing my whole life. They call them death doulas. I don't necessarily like that term, maybe afterlife doula or something like that. But it's something that I think I will, when my finances can handle that, it's something that I think I will get certified in. And, you know, part of my healing center that I have planned, because a lot of people are told they're dying and then they just die because they've been told they're dying, you know, and they don't always have to die. Like, so I call it a healing center because I think people will come there to die and find out that they can actually live. But for those that are going to transition, you know, my idea was that they could do it however they wanted to do it. You know, they could have a Viking funeral or whatever they wanted to have, and because I've been at so many deaths, and it can truly be a beautiful experience or it can be an excruciatingly painful experience depending on how it goes. I find the biggest fear, people just don't want to die alone. And these days, with people taking care of their health a little better than maybe some of their other family members, sometimes people get to the end and they don't have any family. And so they are kind of faced with dying alone. And so this chapter actually inspired me. It gave me um, a little bit of direction going forward, and I'm so happy that she did that with her mom. You know, and I think that that's something that I will incorporate. I mean, I haven't decided which school I'm going to do, which certificate program or whatever, but I hope that that process is something that they include, and if not, then it will be something that I suggest. So I enjoyed the chapter a lot.
Yeah, I'll jump out again. I didn't catch everything you said, Catherine, but the last bit I caught. Yeah, you're right. I'm part of that baby boomer population, and I'm not getting any younger. So for me, that's stuff that's kind of creeping in my life too. How I'm treating people, how I'm um, trying to work on relationships and friendships and stuff like that to draw a deeper meaning from them, and because I want to feel I left an impact. Because like when my grandmother passed away, I didn't get the proper goodbye. You know, I was down here, she was up there. You know, and I think what I got out of this chapter too is I think it did her mom a lot of good to realize the true value and impact that she had on people's lives, not just monetarily, but physically, emotionally, spiritually, that whole bit that we all that that we all want and that we all desire, that we all go through our whole lives looking for and desiring that real contact with people. And so many of us um, fail to reach that pinnacle. And I think, you know, seeing this played out in the chapter, I think it shows it can be reached as best as you can.
Yeah, I love how when we read a chapter and we all get different things out of it, and I love the fact that you got out of it what you did, Catherine, because I read it, and although it did touch me, and I thought about my own grandmother and my mom, and the things that I feel like I missed out on with my grandmother because she was in Florida and I was up here with two young children, and I wish I'd have had the time to go and spend with her closer, to the last few years of her life. I wish I'd have had that. And what actually brought up for me in this section is when she was talking about her grandchildren and how she had, the money that she had set aside, and how she gave them each a portion of that money, and then she talked to each one of them about how they were going to spend it. She just took pleasure in that knowledge and that ability to do that and have those moments with her family members. And of course right now my grandchildren are at the beginning of their lives, and that's what kind of really struck me the most is just that connection with them. And I think a lot about the legacy, or not so much the legacy of what I want to leave behind, but more of the impact that I want to have on my grandchildren. And I'm reminded of the things that I did with my own children, that I'm like, okay, I could have done these things differently, and how can I make an impression on my grandchildren that will be more in line with the way that I see the world now versus back then when it was just all rush, 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 and try and pay the bills and make sure everybody's fed. And um, so I thought that was just really interesting, and just kind of reflecting back on how we've lived our lives up until now and how I want to live my life, going forward in relation to our finances and our philosophy and just all of those things. And Dan, and when you were talking about the person at the convenience store, and I think about these things too, the people that we interact with on a daily basis, that we kind of, I don't know if we necessarily take them for granted, or if it's just that they're there and we just don't think a whole lot about it. And and some people who do things in our lives that are obvious. And it's like when we were over at the apartment, we just had a wonderful mailman. I just really loved him, and he so wanted to make friends with our dog, and our dog is not somebody to make friends with easily. And but it was fun just interacting with him, even though he was just somebody who brought us mail. But I really liked him. And of course now we get over here, and this mailman over here just like can't even figure out how to close the mailbox, and that's been frustrating. But it's just it's little things like that. I mean, the people that prepare our food in fast food restaurants and other restaurants, and grocery store people. And, particularly I think of, and I always try and make sure that I thank people who work on those days when we, would not work, holidays and late nights, and, when we've got to rush to the store in the middle of the night to get something, and there's a person there that's there providing that service. And I always make sure and tell them how much I appreciate them. And, and I feel like, we could appreciate all of those people. We could show our appreciation much more than what we probably do. But yeah, I was reminded of that when you were talking, Dan.
I think there's also, thankfully, when my grandmother was dying, I mean, I had to borrow the money and all of that to do it, but I was able to take my two kids down and just say goodbye to her, basically, let her see the kids and everything before she passed. But in this day and age, there's really no reason for families not to be able to say goodbye because of video conferencing. And so with people that have a little bit of technology, that's another thing that can be utilized to help bring closure and not leave people with regrets. Oh, I wish I could have gone and seen my grandmother, So I think that times have changed and, people are living longer. I was sitting in Taco Bell drive-thru last night and I was sitting there thinking, if it wasn't for Taco Bell right now, I would not eat because I was too exhausted to cook. I was too exhausted to go to the store. I was too exhausted to do anything except drive through Taco Bell and get a bean and rice burrito, So, and I should have told him. And next time I go through, I'm gonna tell him because I've worked fast food and it sucks. I mean, I don't know hardly anybody who works fast food who actually enjoys it. It's just a suck job, but it's a job that you do because you can get it and it helps feed your kids or whatever, But next time I go through, I'm going to make sure and tell them, thank you. If you weren't here right now, I would go to bed hungry tonight because that was the reality of it, And we had a big, they called it some kind of cyclone blizzard that came through this past week. And, we had 1,100 cars out there stranded with people in them that the rescue people were trying to get to. And 200,000 without power and all this, that, and the other. And I was out there. I drove as long as I could. One of my last fares was a mom and her two kids, and I got them to where they were going safely. And then I did one more ride, and then visibility got to about, I don't know, I could see maybe 20 feet ahead of me. I mean, it was getting worse and worse, and I was about to be in zero visibility. And I said, well, I got to head home myself. So I started following the news, and it turned out there was a mom and two kids stranded in a car, and they couldn't get to them. Like they were trying for hours to get to them. And I heard the news was following it, and they said, okay, they're within a quarter of a mile, and everybody was like cheering, And then the next announcement was, no, it's zero visibility, 5-foot snow drifts. We just can't get to them. We have to turn around. And then at another point, they announced we're stopping rescues for people because we have to rescue the rescuers who were out trying to rescue that are now needing to be rescued. I mean, so I was so appreciative, of all those people who are out all night long in blizzard conditions trying to help other people. So much so that I was sort of a bitch the next day because my first rider I picked up from the Hilton says, oh, I didn't think that storm was bad at all. And all I can say is thank God for mirrored sunglasses because my look would have killed her. I'm positive of it. If she could have seen my eyes, that would have been it, And I'm like, and then I did the ultimate, oh my God, did I say that thing? And I said, I'm sure it was fine at the Hilton, But there were 1,100 people out stranded in their car, and mothers with children who I don't even know if they made it through the night. Like because a lot of people don't carry emergency equipment and stuff, but I think we take all those people for granted, and we always assume that no matter what happens to us in this day and time, people can get to us, and that's not always the truth. They're out there risking their lives. So I think just letting people know. I mean, you don't have to wait until you're dying to do it, but just letting people know how much you appreciate them, and especially if they're doing a somewhat thankless job, you know. Um, I had my riders were very, very appreciative that I was picking them up in the middle of a blizzard. I can tell you, they didn't know how they were going to get home or anything, and I was glad to be out there up to a certain point. And then unfortunately, I had to look out for my own safety as well. But just really letting people know that what they do matters. Can change somebody's, maybe they were just feeling like horrible because they work at Taco Bell or something. You know what I mean? I think it can give them some energy back and let them know, because everybody wants to feel like they're doing something important. And unfortunately, it feels like, and it's not necessarily true, but it feels like some jobs aren't important, but they are. Like all the jobs are important. Just imagine where we would be without trash trucks. People driving trash trucks and picking up our trash. We'd have all this trash piling up around us, and there's a lot of jobs like that really nobody wants to do, working on people's toilets and stuff. Who really wants to do that? But it's important. It's an important job. And helping people through death seems a little bit of a morbid kind of a job, but it's an important job, because people are so afraid at that point, and they need somebody there that's not afraid, that can help them through that. So I think that, each one of us makes way more of an impact than what we realize. It's just that people don't necessarily tell us, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting, um, the thoughts of I'm just now kind of going through my head of some of the people that I interact with, people that I care about, people that are friends, people that just in general. And I even wonder what type of impact I've had on their lives and if they will, and if, excuse me, pardon me, and if this is going to sound weird the way I say it, but I'm going to say it because I think we all think it and feel it. I wish I could know what they think about the impact I've made on their lives just in general without having to go through the death process or something like that. If you understand what I'm saying, because sometimes I think, um, I feel in my heart that there are people I've placed on my heart that are in my life, and they're there for a reason. I'm in their lives for a reason, and that I'm meant to have an impact on their life. But sometimes you get around people like that, and it feels like they don't appreciate it, they don't understand it, they've never been in those situations, and it makes you wonder if it's worth it too sometimes. And those are questions that are going through my head. If in the areas where I feel that I've been led and believe that I'm supposed to have an impact, if maybe I'm misguided a little bit, and if I'm needing to change and move my look for other opportunities to have an impact. I think that's kind of where I'm headed, and that's something that this chapter kind of brought up too. Is where and how can I have the best impact? But does my impact really? Is it really an impact? So that's some other questions that this chapter brought up for me too.
Yeah, I can see where your thought process is going with that, Dan, and because I'm about to have some bigger changes in our situation too. Just transitioning from the job that I'm in back into driving a truck again, which has been, for the longest time, I'm like, I'm never going back to that. Just not gonna do it. And and sometimes it's things in your life that kind of push you in one direction or another. And for me, this past holiday season in the retail business just really, it just was so painful for me. I mean, I don't know, it sounds silly. It was just, I don't know if it was painful. Maybe it was just me rejecting all of it. I don't know. And now I'm causing myself my own pain. But, um, and part of it, I guess, also is that, I feel like, you know, Chris and I need to have a unified front and, going forward with this business and for me to kind of, I don't know, put aside my dislikes of the trucking and be more supportive of his business. And this has been kind of a long time coming, I think, because when we first came back to Indiana, that's what he wanted and what he wanted to focus on, and I was reluctant to come up here. And and over time I've just become more and more supportive of the situation, and I guess this is just me going all in. I don't know. Finally getting 100% on board with this whole thing. And that's probably our whole problem is all along is I've just not been 100% supportive. And now I'm, okay, I guess I'm ready. I don't know. But I, I don't know where I was going with that. But anyway, we were all talking about changes in our life, and that was what brought that up. But um, another thing that jumped out for me in this chapter is when she was talking about when Buckmeister Phil, what was his name? Buckmeister Fuller? Buckmeister Fuller. Yeah, okay. So they were over for dinner, and she said that he said something that changed her life and her relationship with her children. And he said, remember, your children are your elders in universe time. They have come into a more complete, more involved universe than you or I can know. We can only see that universe through their eyes. And that was just really interesting to me to think about that and the whole. I mean, depending on how you see us as a spiritual being, and I kind of feel like we keep coming back here to experience different things, and if that's so, then that means my children have been here before, and they were here before me, being before here now. I don't know, and so if that's the case, then technically they would be like older souls, and coming back into this. I'm not sure exactly how he was referring to them as being elders in the universe. That's kind of how I saw it, and I was like, So, and I'm also curious. She made mention that one of her children had said something that was really profound in an innocent kind of way. I can't remember where that was in this chapter. I re-listened to the chapter yesterday on my way to work, and the downside of listening to an audiobook is you can't just underline a spot. You can come back to it, and but I thought it was just really interesting is that the child had said just something really profound and in an innocent kind of way, in this kind of wisdom, but she never said what it was, and I was like, why didn't she share that with us? But I guess it wasn't important to the conversation. But anyway, I just thought it was just really interesting thinking about our children as if they are our elders in universe time. And of course, we don't ever treat our children like they're smarter than us generally. I mean, sometimes we do, but I mean, I think generally we think we're smarter and we think we know everything, and that our kids need to learn from us. But to turn that around and look at it from the other way, and what can our children teach us? How can they, what do they have to offer to us that we just don't see? They just see things different, And I'm just kind of curious about that. What do you guys think about that?
I agree that children and kids and even into young adulthood can have such a freshness and newness of life like we once had when we were their age. If we go back to when we were that age, we were full of desire and dreams and wanting to do this and make an impact and make a change and and that no fear, just wanting to go and do and conquer. Excuse me again. And I think at some point somehow we lose that. We just lose it, but we gain the experience side of things and then understanding from. So we lose on one hand, we gain on another hand. But why can't we have both, and why can't we keep both, and why can't we keep that newness and honest and that wonder of life and what beauty that God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, has put out there for us to explore and interact with and appreciate and um, take care and nurture. Um, in a weird way, the universe is alive. It expands. It's growing. It's doing this. The Earth is alive. It's an organic organism. It is alive for all intents and purposes. It breathes. It takes in carbon dioxide, breathes out oxygen, which is what we take in. Oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide. So we support each other. We're cohabitants and we're coexisting. And I think that we missed out on a lot of that and how and that goes in again to the impact that we have in life and how our impact can be um, for the good or for the bad and how we respond to that and how we take ownership of that. I think that's the other thing I'm getting out of this is you know the last few years I've tried to change my perspective on how I treat people, how I interact with people. And but again, it brought me back to that question: has my impact been worth it? Is it worth it? Is it um, have I been misled? Like I said, going back to what I said earlier. So I think those are part of the cycle of life that we all go through at various degrees, and we all reach different levels and different aspects of it. And I think the more open we are to looking at this life we're a part of, you know, how does impact go and how does it, you know, how do we keep it going and but keeping it in the positive vein rather than the negative vein?
Well, I'll be the first to say I don't understand how the universe works and how reincarnation works, although I believe in it. Like, I'm not sure that we all, that we always come here to Earth. So our children could be from a much more advanced civilization, for all we know, that have come here now with these new ideas. Um, just as time doesn't exist, but we live by time. So even if you just think of it from a linear standpoint, our children would be our elders because they died. They've died like we died, then we reincarnated. They were still living somewhere, and then they died and now they've reincarnated. So they are our elders. And if they have come from a different place, um, God only knows what kind of gifts they'll bring to the world. Like my grandson, who's talking about being a scientist because he dreams about these dark portals where they're sending in negative energy, and he's going to stop that. And he just dreams this stuff, and maybe it's something that he experienced wherever he was the last time. Who knows? you could go down a real deep rabbit hole on that one. But I know that, each generation builds upon the last one, hopefully. But also, sometimes kids come in with these just phenomenal ideas, like I like to go out and look for, quote, good feeling stories, and you read about these kids that are in high school or whatever, and they're building things that clean the ocean, clean all the plastic out of the ocean or whatever. Or, they come in with these ideas that nobody here has thought about before. And so it makes you wonder, where did they come from? Maybe they were from a more advanced civilization and that's how they handled it there or whatever, or maybe they never had that issue. So it's really, kids are great. Some of the things that they say, come up with, and it just blows my mind. But I don't understand how it works. I just know that I don't think that I don't think all of this was created just for this one time, for us to have, and then that's it. I just cannot believe that. And just from a human standpoint, and I was talking with one of my writers about this yesterday. We never feel older. Like our bodies feel older, but our minds don't feel older. Because she was telling me how she was talking to her 75-year-old mom, and now her mom, she still wants to do all the things that she ever did, but she can't really, but she still thinks she can, and then she gets hurt or whatever. And I'm like, that's because you never feel older. Your body feels older, but you don't really feel older. You just look in the mirror one day and go, what the hell happened? You just like you just always feel the same. And to me, that feels like, because that's my soul, because that's who I am. And souls are ageless. They don't live on a time schedule like we do. And that's why I think we don't ever really feel older. I mean, some days we feel like we're 300, but we're just tired or whatever. But as far as how quickly this life goes, it just feels like a blink of an eye. Just like I imagine, whoever is out there and wherever they are, if anybody's observing us, I'm sure somebody's observing us. This a lifetime must just pass in the blink of an eye. Like time as we know it doesn't really exist. It's just something. What was it somebody said? Time is God's way of keeping everything from happening all at once.
Yeah, we were watching can't remember what the show is called. I don't know. It's one of those ones where it's just a documentary and it talks about the Earth and all of that, and it's from like the perspective of astronauts who have been, in space for any amount of time, looking down on the Earth, and then of course they add a bunch of commentary to it and whatnot. But it's just really interesting the way that they were kind of describing the Earth is just like what you were saying, Dan, as a living being, and just seeing that different perspective from up above versus being down here and being a part of it. It's kind of like the difference between you know I don't know, looking down on an ant, I guess. I don't know, when you're just seeing all of the intricate things that ants do, and and then kind of seeing the earth as just a single organism that has all these internal moving parts, just like any creature, and I don't know. It's just interesting watching shows like that and just seeing those different perspectives. And then of course, then they talk about all of the different things that had to happen in the universe in order for us to even be here. And it's just like so like perfect, you know. And then just I don't know. Somebody, like you said, Catherine. I mean, maybe somebody's watching, or maybe it's just us, and we're just watching ourselves. And I don't know. Be interesting, but now we're way off topic. But I don't know. Anybody else have any final thoughts on this chapter? There's a couple of interesting things in here that she kind of wrote some quotes about. One of them was from the center of the New American Dream, and when they're talking about guiding their children in authentic relationships with money. I don't know, but we can read that, or you guys have final thoughts. What do you think? Everybody muted out their picture. Or video or whatever.
Hi, Sandy.
Yeah, hi Sandy. And she mentioned in the chat that she was just going to be in the background. No, my husband's talking on the phone in the garage, so my dog's trying to have something to say about it. Okay, I'll read this. You guys can jump out if you want to. So let's see. Okay, so she's talking about educating our children in the inaccurate condition of scarcity, and so the Center for the New American Dream offers these practical suggestions. Help your child understand that every product is made from materials extracted from the earth, and that material things don't just disappear when the garbage gets picked up. Teach your children about what happens to all that stuff. When we consume lots of plastics, heavy packaged goods, and products that easily break, we leave a heavy burden for our future generations. Seek out sources of earth-friendly products that are durable and made from biodegradable and recycled materials. Be a role model. Avoid impulse shopping. Limit your consumption of products that deplete the earth. Introduce your child to books and other materials that reinforce these messages. I know we didn't really talk too much about the trying to leave a legacy that doesn't keep going along this lines of scarcity and fear, and I guess we kind of forgot to talk about that because we've talked about so many other things relating to death and just our place in this universe, and but it's just kind of remembering that. Of course, that's what this whole book is about. Is trying to get over the scarcity mindset, and I think it's also trying to teach us how to get over the fear mindset as well, because that's where so much of this scarcity stuff comes from. And but yet I realize that our evolutionary development is kind of what brought us to these thought processes, and and I wonder how things could have been different in order to make us think more abundantly, and because I think back and I'm like, well, if we were back in the Stone Ages and we're just trying to survive, and some animals come along and steal our food, is that where this whole scarcity mindset started from? Is when you can't find food and when you can't keep your food, and you lose people in your group because animal attacks or whatever, and then as we keep going through time, and then we have groups that start warring with each other, and it's like, gosh, was it just meant to be that we were supposed to have this kind of a mindset? Because how could it have been different? And I'm curious, were we just, I don't know. I wish that it had been, that we'd have been teaching ourselves to work together versus warring with one another, and I hope that we can make those changes in the future. And I don't know. What do you guys think?
Step away a minute or two ago, but I also, yeah, it's um, I'm going to bring some personal stuff into it again. We haven't talked about abuse and stuff I lived out kind of a warring type, world, and yet, through impact of my grandmother, that impact, her impact, had a profound effect on me in my life and how I try to treat other people because of seeing what a personal type war, even though it wasn't meant to be. I think my parents fully, meant to be the way they were. It was just part of what happened. But yet, out in life, um, how we uh, go out and sometimes willing to listen to other sides, or how we feel that our side is the one and only way of what it is, and rather than being able to say, okay, we disagree, but let's find a common area to move forward. Battle lines are drawn up, and that's the way it's been for centuries, and it will probably continue on. But each little impact of how we, on a more our sphere of influence around us, can be that ripple effect that can go out. Sorry, I'm still fighting getting over being sick, so can be what goes out and ripples through the world to allow for our kids and future generations to see that it can be done, and to open up that freedom to explore and go out and try to. Catherine's grandson once, why the dark spheres are putting out negative energy, but I think without the negative and the positive, what would move life forward too, if you kind of follow what I'm saying. But it's just being able to be more on the positive side, moving forward in that positive vein. I think that's what, you know, working our sphere of influence can have that effect and move forward.
Hope you feel better, Dan. Yeah, it'll be interesting just to see how things progress, because this does seem to be a planet where there has always been war. And I don't know if there will ever come a time when there's not, or if that's just kind of a theme on this planet. I sort of think that there's just different planets, different universes with different themes, and that happens to be one of the themes here. So maybe we come here to experience that. Maybe we don't come here to necessarily fix it, even though we think we're supposed to. But maybe we come here because we've never experienced war anyplace else or in any other lifetime. Because maybe they've all advanced past that or something. This is a free will planet. And unfortunately, some souls choose to do some things that seem pretty horrendous. My heart goes out to the mosque shootings and all of that, and to think that someone was, so proud of that or whatever that they would live broadcast it. I wondered for a minute, are they going to take away the ability to do live broadcasting so that that sort of thing doesn't happen? I mean, how is that going to come into censorship and stuff? So but I also think that we agree to, that we choose our lives before we go into them. I think that we agree to come here. So, I don't, and I tell people this all the time, I have no idea what's going on. Like, I don't understand it at all. But there does seem to be, even in the midst of chaos, there seems to be an order. And things seem to happen exactly as they're supposed to. I swear to God, I pick up the people I am supposed to pick up. Rides cancel so that the next ride is the person that I was supposed to talk to that day. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that this happens because of some of the conversations that I have with people. And it is all interwoven so perfectly, even though it seems so chaotic and so out of control. It is completely in somebody's control. I don't know who it is, but it's amazing, and it's um, it's frightening. It's horrific, and yet it is so heartwarming the way that different tragedies bring people together and make them realize the importance, or like when death is approaching and makes them realize the importance of reaching out and saying, thank you, you made a difference in my life. Um, I don't know, this is a universe that wakes up your heart in all kinds of ways. And I don't think we were meant to understand it. I don't think our minds, our little human minds, can really comprehend it all and the intricacies of it. I think maybe once we leave, we get a better picture of it or something. And then we can go, oh, that's why that just like, sometimes something happens and you don't understand it. And then 10 years later, you look back and you go, oh, that's why that happened, of course. And I think that's just kind of how it is in the afterlife. We look back at this one and go, oh, that's why that happened, of course. So thank you, everybody, for being here. I hope you all have a great week and stay warm if the blizzard's coming at you.
Yeah, that's funny what you just said about, learning and understanding after like something happens today and then 2, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and you look back and you're like, oh, I get it now. Hindsight's always 20/20, and it's sad because it would be nice to have that hindsight going forward to know, but then that I think that takes out some of the joy and the wonder and frustrations and the learning and growing of what life has to offer. But this chapter really kind of, opened my eyes to a lot of things and things I want to work towards for when I'm ready at that point. Um, because, like she said, her mom didn't have a lot of money to leave the relatives and the grandchildren and stuff. I am, you know, basically all I have is my house. You know, I've been wiped out from losing 2 jobs. I'm trying to get back to where I can leave a little bit of a legacy to, and I don't have a family. I'm me. I have my brother and his wife. I have my mom. I have other members of my family that I care a lot about, but I don't have what you and Samantha have. I don't have a family that I have people I consider family and people that are very close to me and very important to me and that mean the world to me. But even in that context, it's different than like you guys do for your family. There's a connection, and that's something I don't have, and I wish I did. So, in me, leaving a little bit of legacy is to my brother or my sister-in-law, my nieces, my nephews, my roommate and his daughter, the people that have become that important to me. So in that sense, that's why I'm looking at impact and how my life has played out and how I want to be a better impact.
We love you, Dan. Trying to give you a hug. I think that you know, like Catherine was saying, we decided to come here and have this experience, and you know, whatever it is, maybe we decided before we came here, you know, the life that we were gonna live so that we could have a certain kind of. Love you, Sandy. Bye. Thanks for jumping on for a minute. But here she is. Um, you know, there was one of the stories that I read, or one of the books that I read from Wayne Dyer. He talks about that a lot, you know, because he has this whole, you know, like you were saying, Catherine, later in his life, he realized what it was all for, you know, because his father left his family at a really, when he was young, and he was, you know, he was just a drunk a-hole, and left the family and never had anything to do with them again. And, you know, that haunted Wayne for a lot of years, and finally he came to terms with it, and kind of had this idea that maybe they had chosen to be in those roles before they even came here, and that, you know, that his father had agreed to be the drunk a-hole, you know, to provide Wayne with those experiences in his own life, because he wouldn't be the person he was if those things hadn't happened. And, you know, at the end of this chapter, close to the end of this chapter, there's actually a poem that she put in here. It's a Sufi poem that, and she said, and it says, I asked for strength, and God gave me difficulties to make me strong. I asked for wisdom, and God gave me problems to learn to solve. I asked for prosperity, and God gave me a brain and brawn to work. I asked for courage, and God gave me dangers to overcome. I asked for love, and God gave me people to help. I asked for favors, and God gave me opportunities. I received nothing I wanted. I received everything I needed. I think that's a kind of a great way to end this whole conversation. And, you know, I try and think of those things, not those things specifically, but when I am frustrated or angry or annoyed or whatever about things that have happened or are happening or whatever, it's just to be reminded that, you know, I did come here on purpose. And maybe in this life, I don't know exactly what that purpose is, but that's okay, because it's all what I'm supposed to be doing. And, you know, I try to remind myself also sometimes when I have big decisions to make that there's really no wrong decision, because if it's all, you know, if it's all connected in some way, it's supposed to happen. And I know that I'm ultimately, no matter what choice I make, I'm making the right choice, because that's the choice that I'm meant to make for this life and this experience. And I think we beat ourselves up so much about, you know, what we think we should be or should do or should, et cetera, et cetera. And but we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing, and we are exactly who we're supposed to be for whatever we came here to be. I don't know. That's kind of my thought on it. And I think we cause ourselves a lot of human suffering by second guessing everything and questioning everything we do and wondering if it's the right thing or not, or whatever. And I think it's all the right thing, because otherwise we wouldn't be doing it, you know. So anyway, that's my thoughts to wrap up this chapter. Guys, it's been great. I love talking with you, and I love hearing your insights, because, you know, when I read this chapter, I didn't get nearly as much out of it as what I just did just talking to you guys. And I appreciate you so very much and love you all so very, very much. You are a part of my family. And, you know, I mean, you may not be my children or my sisters or brothers, but you are my family. You know? So I love you. Anyway, guys, have a great, awesome, amazing week. Oh, and this, we're coming up on the last chapter. So the next hangout that we have is going to be the last chapter of this book. We've got to pick another book. So jump over to mindsetmasterycollective.com. There's a post in there where you can add your thoughts to what we should study next. And anyway, let us know. You guys too. Make a vote or make a suggestion. It doesn't matter what we study, because it's all going to be right. So anyway, that's it for today. Bye.